Welcome to ZKast, everyone. I'm ZS Caraval from ZK Research, and I'm here on site at Enterprise Connect 2024 in Orlando, Florida. I'm joined today by Eric Hanson, the CTO of Mitel. Eric, you're relatively new to this position, so for people that aren't familiar with you, I know you have a background in telecom, though. Just who are you, and you know, why did you choose Mitel? You've got a pretty long pedigree in marketing, so there must have been something attractive about this company that brought you here.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having us. So Eric Hanson, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Mitel, and actually, you know, previous to Mitel, I spent over 10 years in the UCaaS space, and then a couple of years actually in cybersecurity, and really happy to be back in the industry. Yeah. I think from the why Mitel side of things, when I was in the UCaaS space, really focused on vertical markets, frontline worker, trying to solve that problem, and felt like UCaaS had sort of reached its limits. And so for me, being a part of a company, what was attractive to me was that intersection of hardware, software, and the flexibility for, you know, delivering the right tools for the right use cases. And I really felt like Mitel had a really great angle on that in terms of capitalizing on the market.
So I'm interpreting that there wasn't enough excitement in cybersecurity, so you had to come back to the communication space.
There's some truth in that, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of risk in cyber too. And Luiz Domingos, you're the CTO of Mitel. Now you're not as new as Eric, but still a quick bio on yourself, please.
Yes, I'm a veteran, let's put it that way. I'm in the business for quite some time, so I come from from the Siemens times, Siemens Telecommunications, through Unify, and for 6 months now, at the end of this week, will be 6 months as part of the Mitel acquisition.
6 months now, wow.
Yeah,
quickly. Seems like it was yesterday that it closed.
It goes fast, yeah. And I'm very excited, really. I'm learning a lot about Mitel, so I tell people I have a PhD on Unify portfolio. I was head of portfolio and CTO at Unify, and over 25 years in the business, and now I'm learning more about Mitel, certainly. From the water hose here, from the fire hose, but at the same time trying to find what is our strategy and creating some elements of the technology strategy and how we integrate both companies together, how we bring the portfolios and pivot that into our innovation roadmaps.
Yeah, so the timing of the show I find interesting because last week we had NVIDIA's GTC event, right, the big AI show, which people called AI Woodstock. And if that was AI Woodstock, then this is maybe AI Lollapalooza, you know, kind of a smaller version of that. And I'm curious, since you're a technical one, Luiz, first of all, just thoughts on the show. There's obviously a lot of AI here. And, is it real? Because I hear a lot of people talk about AI, but when I ask about deployments, there aren't a lot of them.
Yep. It is a good point because everybody has to talk about AI. It became an obligation. And of course, we have our strategy outlined, so we create some elements on how we want to tackle that, both by building that into our products and at the same time taking advantage of our professional service. We have a large professional service organization from the UFI world to build the customer, the last mile, the implementations. Well, is it real or not? I think that's a good question, correct? So I think there is more immediate use cases where you can say, yeah, it brings immediate value and we can exploit. Particularly when you talk about contact center, bringing agent productivity capabilities. I think for sure that's the initial key use case where we can create value. And beyond that is still a lot of research, a lot of investigation to really detect and extract the value from it.
So if you think of the baseball analogy, right, of what inning are we in? Are we even in the game yet? Are the pitchers warming up, or first inning, second inning?
I believe we're in the initial innings.
Okay.
That's how I see, correct? And actually what we built into our products, we already have some elements of it. So customers are showing a lot of interest. But ultimately, we need to deliver what is the value, what is the excitement behind that brings value to the customer that they will be acquiring and subscribing to our services. But it is early stages for sure. Yeah. And maybe the players are not yet fully warmed up.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, let's hope, I guess. People have spent an awful lot of money on this stuff. And so, Eric, I want to come back to you. When you think about the use cases for AI, right, and I'll give you an anecdote. I was talking with Bill Schlau, the CIO of the San Francisco Giants last week, and I asked him how they're thinking about using AI, and he said it permeates every discussion they have in the organization, right? From on-field operations to training to scouting to fan experience to, what they're doing in food services, right? And they have all these initiatives underway, but the challenge I see is you can't obviously deploy all those things at once, right? And it's a little bit like the early days of cloud, where you couldn't lift and ship all your applications into the cloud overnight. So you had to figure out the ones where there was the biggest bang for the buck. And so when you think of all the different use cases, both on the employee experience side, but also the customer experience side, from a Mitel perspective, where do you think you can have the most impact? And activate AI so it's real, it's painless, but also the customer gets a strong ROI.
I think it's a great question. I think it starts with data, and I think one of the things that I've always found in my career, especially the last probably 5-10 years with the emergence of machine learning and deep learning and those types of things, is it starts with how good is the data. And so many organizations, as you know, especially in the enterprise, they don't know where all their data is.
They do not know where all their data is. That is correct.
And so this is a compelling event, I think, to bring some of those things together, which is important in terms of preparation for when we get into the mid and later innings, using that analogy. So I think that's one really important thing that I'm personally very excited about. In terms of so I view in the early innings, this is really an enabler for certain use cases. Virtual assistants certainly is something that we are seeing, and some organizations are getting value out of that. But I think in parallel to that, the early value that we're going to see is really how we learn and what we learn as we start to experiment with our customers and going on that journey, because I think the nuance for healthcare versus manufacturing versus some of these other industries is gonna differ. But one thing that I think provides a lot of value, which comes back to my point about data, is you think about healthcare as an example, and our VCCS solution as an example helps provide context for physicians when they're interacting with with patients, right? And so there's a level of context that I think AI can layer in, just as it does in some of the contact center applications that are being discussed for AI, where it can add a lot of value for that experience, both for the patient and certainly for the doctor.
Yeah, in fact, I think if you think of both on the employee side and the contact center side for agents and employees, it gives us the opportunity to be a lot smarter, faster.
Yeah.
Because we're not looking up information, it gets pushed to us. But I think with that, though, especially with generative AI, I played with it, I've talked to people that have played with it, it's almost like we have to relearn how to learn. And I'm not sure if you'd agree with that or not, because the whole concept of prompting a computer to give you an answer and then tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it isn't really a natural way to work, at least not in my age demographic, right? And so that does put an emphasis on a company like yourself for ease of use, correct?
Yeah, I would agree. And I might reframe that slightly and say we all need to become good coaches now.
Yeah.
Right? Because we have to teach.
Well, that's a good point, actually.
We have to teach it how to help us in a way, in terms of what are the things that we're trying to glean from it, how can we feed that data, and what are we expecting in return. So I think there's an element of that for sure that plays into this.
Okay, Luis, I want to stay on the AI theme with you. Since you're the tech person here, when you think about how to implement AI, there's lots of strategies you can take, obviously, right? There's build your own models, partner with companies, and when I look across the spectrum of the communications vendors, there's no right choice. Obviously, everybody has a different strategy. So what's your strategy, how you move into AI and, be able to bring it to your customers as quickly as possible, but still as safely as possible?
Yes, our strategy is now based on two elements. One is enabling some of our products to be able to have the language models already pre-built, or at least the necessary agent assistant capabilities on UC and contact center. So that's the enablement.
And those your own models, or are you partnering for those?
We're partnering.
Yeah.
We're partnering. We're not going to be investing fully in creating our own models, but certainly we want to adapt the models to the vertical use cases. I think that's key, correct? If you need to coach and train, you need to train for the verticalized demands, which are very unique in our communication business for vertical, healthcare, finance, government. Each one will have their specific training and adaptations to the learning models to be able to deliver. One aspect of it as well is where you do the training and how you deliver the training, correct? So how we deliver the AI capabilities. And we've been investigating initially at this point how we do small language models that we can have better control, protection of the customer data, giving them some extra sense of security on the data privacy, particularly in our European customers, and now delivering this through an edge AI capability, particularly in our business that is driven a lot by communications, by real-time communications. So many of the interactions, particularly in the spoken language, cannot be done in real time if you have to go to the cloud and back. That half a second, that 1 second delay is going to affect the natural language interaction. So we're investing in that front.
And do you find that from a developer perspective, you have to take different approaches, US versus Europe, or regulatory issues and privacy is so much more important over in Europe that it really changes your thought process, how you do it.
Absolutely, and now they just had the AI Act. It just came out of the European Commission, and we have a strong...
Because they like to regulate everything over there.
Yeah, there's a trend, and we have a large base in Europe, so we have to care a lot about that, so we're trying to understand how that plays. But protecting customer data is key for us, and I think it's going to be not only in certain regions, but also in certain market segments. Healthcare data, for example, we need to be very careful how we handle that with AI. So yeah, we're very cognizant of those conditions and restrictions, and we're trying to apply those as we train and we do the learning machine experience.
Okay. And Eric, grab the mic back there. And when you think of the UC industry in general, outside of AI, what are some of the other trends that excite you here?
It's a great question. Well, I think for me...
And that must have helped bring you over here, right? So,
no, for sure. Yeah. I think, we touched on it a little bit in terms of some of the portfolio that came over from Unify, and I think even more importantly was that focus on creating differentiated experiences, at the user level and as they're trying to drive, kind of their customers' customer value, right? And so when I think about what we're doing in healthcare, connecting not just sort of the traditional use cases around, paging and emergency services and those types of things, but also, the proper use of telehealth in a deeply integrated way that combines hardware and software. That's personally exciting to me, and how we then apply that to other industries, whether it's education or manufacturing, when you're connecting field to floor. I think that's particularly interesting to me. And for me, it's all about taking what our R&D teams are doing in terms of that intersection of how we're using DECT when Wi-Fi is not good enough, or those types of things, and then applying that to these rich experiences that communicating the art of the possible on this is what's particularly exciting to me.
Yeah, it seems like the keys there are making sure customers have choice.
Yes.
Right, because not everything's over Wi-Fi, not everything's over DECT, not everything's in the cloud, not everything's on-prem, right? And then I do think it's interesting that you brought up the machine-to-machine aspect of that as well. In fact, years ago, I wrote a dummies book for Mitel called Giving Machines a Voice, which talked about the coming together of UC and IoT, and that has been slow to come to fruition, but it actually seems like in a lot of those verticals it is.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think, I touched on frontline workers before. Years ago I was here and we were still having that conversation about one of the most underserved parts of the workplace. And I think there's an opportunity for us to actually make a more meaningful difference in terms of their experience, and ultimately that's going to help organizations thrive as they work with their partners and their customers, right? Yeah. And so I think there's a real opportunity combining some of these new approaches in terms of rich experiences at that level, and then how we leverage AI and other emerging technologies to drive that.
Yeah, now you've mentioned verticals a couple of times, and I know Mitel has years ago moved to a vertical model, which I think was really the right thing for the company. But talk about that, which verticals you're investing in and why those ones.
It's interesting. When the two companies came together, we compared the list of verticals, and actually, fortunately, there was a lot of overlap.
Yeah,
right?
that was lucky.
So, very lucky. So, there are 4 core industries that sort of sit in the middle of that overlap, and then 2 on each edge. But certainly healthcare, which I've talked about several times, is probably one of the top ones. Retail, manufacturing, financial services. All of these, when you look at the Global 2000 lists, sit at the top if you were to kind of consolidate which industries are at the top of that list, and they all have a high population of frontline workers. And so I think that those are the areas where we're really going to be focused, where we think we can really differentiate.
Yeah, I think what's interesting too is that everyone thinks of unified communications as being something for the knowledge worker, and it's almost like we left the frontline worker behind.
Yes.
But in many ways, that type of worker has, I'm not going to say a bigger need for it, but certainly equal. For rapid communications. Think of campus workers, field service people. It's really, I think, an underpenetrated market.
Yeah. I'll give you another example. I did some research personally a couple of years ago around manufacturing, talking to some of your peers and looking, really pouring through a lot of studies out there. And in manufacturing, as an example, the field service workers are aging out. We've got 5 or 6 generations, depending on who you talk to, in the workforce right now. And so one of the concerns for some of these organizations is, how do we capture their knowledge, that institutional knowledge that they have, because they're also having a hard time attracting new talent, right? And so I think certainly AI has a role to play there. Contact center in new ways, some of the ways that we're talking about relative to these vertical applications, I think has a role to play in terms of improving that. And then really enabling those organizations to scale before those people age out and extending them remotely to people that are in the field that you're grooming to replace them, right? So I think there's some really exciting things like that bring them along.
Yeah, and again, when you think of the coming together of UC and CC, that's a perfect use case where a field service person is never somebody you would have thought of as somebody needing a contact center seat.
Right.
And they still don't need a full agent dashboard,
right,
but they need elements of that.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
Okay, so looking ahead into 2024, right, we're in March now, so we got pretty much the whole year ahead of us. From your role as the Chief Marketing Officer, what can we expect to see from Mitel this year?
Yeah, well, number one, a lot more noise.
Yeah.
That's part of my job.
Some noise. Then.
Yeah, some noise. Yeah. Appropriate noise, right? Yeah. But getting much more regular at celebrating some of the things that we're bringing to market, right? Some of the things that are already in market in some cases, like our VCCS product and some of the other things around vertical solutions. We'll be making announcements around what we're doing in terms of the evolution of our AI strategy over the next 2 quarters. We've got our big global partner tour that's about to happen. So we've got North America that's happening later this month. And then we've got Barcelona and Cologne happening just after that. So really excited about that. And then that takes us, kind of through the end of the year and getting ready for 2025.
Barcelona and Cologne, huh? I'm moving my.
You ready to join?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if I were to give some advice, I think sometimes people forget how innovative a company Mitel has been over the years. Mitel really has a long history of first telecommuter phone, first to virtualize, first software-based platform, one of the first partners with Microsoft, right? So there's a pretty long history of innovation there. So I'd certainly recommend that you remind the world who Mitel is.
Well, and Unify as well.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, they certainly have driven a lot of innovation over the years as well in terms of the evolution of
In
that
fact,
company.
I was thinking about that. Who was the first pure software solution? Was it Unify or Mitel? I think it was they were 1 and 1A there. So it's even with the first Unified Communications client. So,
right.
And Luis, as the CTO, what can we expect from you from a product perspective to see this year?
Well, I need to ensure that Eric's vision is materialized.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
You're talking about...
Well, he's got eyes on you. Yeah.
We're talking about first ones, and remember, Unified launched Circuit.
Yes.
The first cloud collaboration solution in 2014. So a lot of pioneerism there, and I was there. I experienced that myself. But now, looking for the future. So this year, we're very engaged in bringing the two solution packages together. So we are working on the unification of the UC solution to have a common expression from the front end of all our applications. We are creating a next generation contact center that will be AI enabled to have the evolution of our current contact center offerings into the future, and also investing a lot on the vertical applications, where we have already a significant portfolio in the combined company, and now we continue to pivot from that into adding more capabilities. So we have a very rich story to tell our customers around what is the vertical capabilities that we promote. Last but not least, having the hybrid capabilities across our portfolio so we can deploy in any constellation the customer will have between premise and cloud workloads.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that. So unless there's anything else to add, okay, I'll wrap this up then. On behalf of Luis and Eric, I'm Zeus Caraval from ZK Research. Thanks for watching. Please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time on our next episode of ZKast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys.
Very good. Thank
Thanks.
you.